interest in finding out about the organization of SDS, we've always been quite willing to talk about
We'll talk about socialism anywhere, in the streets or in the Senate, anywhere, you know. I'm Mike Clancy, National Secretary of SDS, and this is Bernadine Dorn, Inter-Organizational Secretary.
So you were is there a communist faction making a big power play for SDS in this
Is there any communists back here? I guess there is.
All right, it was a very sick time, very dangerous time, 1968 to 1975 in this country, where I understand there was about one terrorist attack going on inside America every week. If you don't believe me, just ask Bryan Burrough, New York Times bestselling author, special correspondent, Vanity Fair magazine, and author of a great new book, Days of Rage. There it is on your screen, America's Radical Underground, the FBI, and the Forgotten Age of Revolutionary Violence. And Bryan Burrough joins us right now. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me in.
This is so important because, I mean, there are so many people out there who, they know the name Bernadine Dorn because of her, the Obama thing brought it all up, but they don't understand. A lot of them, and certainly our youngsters, don't have any clue what went on in this country during those years.
No, they really don't. Even I was shocked. I lived through some of it, and I was shocked at the idea that there were actually 2,500 bombings on U.S. soil in 1971 and 1972 alone. So little of this has ever been told, Steve, because so few of the alumni of this American Radical Underground have ever wanted to come forward and talk, and now finally some of them are.
Proudly. For some of them are proudly coming forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They've lived on the left their whole lives.
Yeah.
It's what they know, and they say, yes, we built these bombs, we did all sorts of violent acts, but it's important that you understand the context of why we did what we did.
So let's name a few. We have the FALN, we have the Weather Underground, we have the Black Panthers.
The Black Liberation Army, which
Army.
assassinated policemen in
Right.
New York and
yes.
elsewhere.
All right. And there's been a lot written about the FBI and how they botched these investigations or broke the law during these investigations. You address that in the book.
They do. One of the reasons that so little has been written about it was obviously many of the people that did the bombings and killed the policemen didn't want to talk about it, but all too often the police and the FBI couldn't either, because the FBI did break a number of rules and had some successful prosecutions against FBI people because of rules that they broke in bringing in some of these people.
I'm very proud to be a friend of Joe Connor, who lost his father in the FALN bombing. He's been on the show many, many times over the years. There's still people out there. Bernadine Dorn's husband, Bill Ayers, he's out there. He's on Fox News. But what's worse than being on Fox News and talking about all this and kind of mincing his words so that he doesn't say, yes, I blew people up, is that they're in academia. They're on college campuses. They're teaching kids. How is that possible?
Well, because in large part they were not ever prosecuted for these things. Therefore, they don't have criminal records. Most of the Weathermen simply went back to the lives that they lived before, and an awful lot of them ended up in education, whether it was Bernadine Dorn and Bill Ayers teaching in college, or the Weather Underground's principal bomb maker, a fellow we identify named Ron Fliegelman, who went on to teach in the New York public schools in Brooklyn for 25 years.
It is really amazing and scary how these people, like you said, why weren't they prosecuted?
Well, the FBI had a little bit of a scandal afterwards, and the FBI was far more concerned with its own case, really, than it was against the Weathermen. Also, you have to remember that after an initial period of several months in which it's very clear from the on-the-record interviews that we present in the book that the Weathermen were attempting to kill policemen and military officers, after that, they did become what Bill Ayers wants you to believe they always were, which is largely protest bombings of bathrooms at the Pentagon, at the Capitol.
Anybody.
But what Bill Ayers doesn't want us to remember is that there was a period of initial few months in which they tried and mounted attacks on police in an attempt to kill.
It was a very frightening time. There were people, I'm trying to remember if it was, it might have been Robert Redford, who he was involved in making the movie about the Weather Underground.
That's right.
And he was asked by George Stephanopoulos, if my memory serves me right, I played this soundbite, that he supports what they did. And Stephanopoulos said, with the bombings and all, he said, everything. And I was flabbergasted. But I'm sure there are a lot of people on the left who, if you got inside their heads, would say the same thing.
If you get inside their heads, it is sometimes hard to argue with them, because the things that they were arguing about, the Nixon administration was pretty corrupt. The Vietnam War was wrong-headed
All
for
right,
many.
but could you imagine now Tea Partiers planting bombs?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
9/11 changed everything. It took away any type of credibility I think that we'll have for generations for political violence. But we have to remember that during the 1970s, these people were considered credible. These
Bryan
were considered
Burrough,
to be real protests.
The book Days of Rage. Bryan Burrough is here. Get the book and learn. It's very informative and entertaining. We're coming back.